Hi everyone. Um, we gave a brief overview of photosynthesis in class, and so now we're going to talk more specifically about light reactions, which is the first part of photosynthesis. Okay, before we talk about light reactions, let's just do a brief review of light and what that means. So ultimately, we're getting our energy from sunlight, and what that is, it's electromagnetic energy. It's a form of radiation. And so it both has wave-like and particle-like properties. Um, and inside light, it's a form of energy and it carries energy in discrete packets called photons. So photons is just like the energy form of light. And then you should know the shorter wavelengths means higher frequency, which is higher energy. So here's just a picture. The light hits the thylakoid here. Some light gets reflected and some light actually gets absorbed. And so the light that we see when we look at something is actually the light that is not absorbed by the chloroplasts and all the different pigments. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the photosynthetic pigments, which are the molecules that actually absorb light. And they absorb very specific frequency of light. There are different types of pigments, and each of them are correlated to a specific frequency. Yeah, we see what's reflected, not absorbed. Here is a diagram that shows the different types of pigments and the light wavelengths that they absorb. The first one is chlorophyll A, and you can see it absorbs very well in kind of like the dark bluish region, violet, and it also absorbs in the red. So because it absorbs red and like this dark blue violet color, it doesn't absorb green and yellow, and that's kind of what's reflected, and that's what we see. Chlorophyll B is very similar. It's a little bit shifted, but it absorbs in like the bluish green spectrum and also in like the orangey spectrum, and then it also kind of reflects a lighter green color or like an olive green color. You don't really need to know the difference between these two. Just know that chlorophyll A is the main chlorophyll that we care about, and chlorophyll B, the reason why it's important is that it just expands the amount of light that the leaves can absorb, and it transfers its energy that it absorbs to chlorophyll A. The last one is called carotenoids, and that's right here, this yellow line. It kind of absorbs blue, green, and violet light. And it reflects like orange and orangey yellow light. It's the color that you see during fall when the chlorophyll starts to die off. The reason why the leaves turn orange and red is because of carotenoids. So this also kind of broadens the spectrum of light that the leaves can absorb. But it's also really important because it can actually absorb harmful light frequencies, and it kind of protects the plant from damaging like UV light and things like that. So photosystems are what contains the pigments, and it's kind of like the entire complex that actually absorbs light inside inside the chloroplasts. So photosystems, they contain something called light harvesting complexes and a reaction center. These light harvesting complexes are just the pigment, which are also bound to proteins, this purple thing. So these are the light harvesting complexes that actually absorb light, and they can actually convert that light energy, transfer that light energy throughout the different pigments, and eventually bring that light energy into the reaction center where it's converted into chemical energy. So the way that these works, photons or light energy hits one of these pigments, and when it hits the pigment, it excites an electron into the excited state. And as that electron gets excited, it emits energy, and that energy can be converted from photon to photon. From pigment to pigment. And so it's kind of like a chain reaction. This photon excites the electron here, which allows there to be a transfer of energy to another pigment, and it keeps on going until it finally hits chlorophyll, which is this last pigment. And as the energy hits the chlorophyll, it excites that electron on chlorophyll, and that excited electron goes into the reaction center right here, and that enables a series of chemical reactions to occur that will eventually lead to the production of ATP and NADPH. Later on, we'll talk more in depth of how that exactly happens, but all you need to know is that the photon, which is light energy, eventually creates a chain reaction of energy transfers that eventually excites the electron on the chlorophyll. This right here is a more zoomed in picture that just shows what's happening. Here the photon hits this chlorophyll, or it could be any pigment, and you see how this electron can get excited and jumps to a higher state, and in the process releases heat and light. And as it sinks back down and releases that energy can go on to excite other pigments. Thanks so much for watching.